Spurgeon here with RevZilla, and I am in the deserts of Southern California, scrambling around on Yamaha's new SCR950. And if this bike looks familiar to you, it should. This is going to be built on the same platform that Yamaha uses for their Bolt line of motorcycles. Now they've changed a few things. You have a different subframe, you've got some wider handlebars for a little bit more of a neutral upright seating position, and of course, knobby tires, because this bike is intended to scramble. Now with that being said, Yamaha makes no bones about the fact that this is really going to be a 90% on-road, 10% off-road machine, and that's how we're going to test it. We're going to do a little bit of off-road riding, and then we're going to hop on the tarmac to really dive into the SCR950. While you're enjoying this first ride review of the SCR, make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube to keep up with all the wild adventures we're getting into here at RevZilla.com. Woo-hoo! So here's what I can tell you so far. This bike does not like sand. The sand really helps to remind you that this bike is nearly 550 pounds wet. And also, on two separate occasions, the belt drive, when I was bogged down in some deeper stuff, almost spun off because there was sand getting caught in between the belt and the pulley. Other thing to note, it doesn't like any real deep ravines. And by deep ravines, I mean anything more than roughly about 3, maybe 4 inches. And that's because there's no suspension travel here. You got 2.8 inches of suspension travel in the back. This thing is kicking my butt. And as far as ground clearance is concerned, Yamaha talks about how they gave us 5.5 inches of ground clearance, but that must be without me sitting on it. I'm 205 pounds and I must pack this thing down a little bit more. The tires on this are going to be the Bridgestone Trail Wings, and I think they're much more appropriate for the asphalt. So let's transition to the asphalt right now. So there's a lot of riders out there that don't like the trail wing tires. Personally, I disagree. I like them. I think they're a nice street tire. I use them on my T100. But riding back there off-road reminds me of just how inadequate these tires are to tackle any real kind of off-road situation. So just remember, if you want to take this off-road, stick to hard packed dirt, and you can have some fun. You can still slide it around, but really where this bike shines is out here on the street, where what you get is a really capable retro-inspired machine. Now, from an ergonomic standpoint, from a styling standpoint, I think Yamaha did a fantastic job. The SCR falls right into line with the other scrambler style bikes we're seeing in the market, both Ducati as well as Triumph. It has the looks down. I really like the fact that there's going to be the new subframe on this. The wider handlebars gives you much more of an upright seating position, and the handling on this, because of those wider bars, extremely nimble. I can really push this the way I want. I love the way that this sits so much more than the Bolt or the C-Spec Bolt. Now, the complaint that I had earlier about the ground clearance off-road carries through on-road as well. When I'm going through some of these tighter turns, I'm just scraping pegs left and right. Let's see if I can do it in this one for you. There it is. Oh, yeah. So just keep that in mind. For new riders, it can be intimidating going through some of these corners and really seeing the pegs scrape like that. As far as the KYB suspension from a handling standpoint is concerned, it's exactly what you'd expect. There's 5 positions of preload in the rear. I set it up to the 3rd position. It was a little bit too soft in the beginning, and it seems to be okay. Nothing crazy. It's not going to blow your mind, but consider the bike that it's on. It'll do just fine. Brakes, nothing has changed over the Bolt. Still no ABS in the brakes. They slow the bike down, adequately with 2-finger pull. The one thing I'll mention, the levers aren't adjustable and they fit me perfectly, but I've got long fingers. So I could see this being a complaint for riders that have shorter fingers not being able to get the lever pull that they're looking for. For riders out there that are looking at this bike, I think it's really the engine that's the takeaway. Extremely approachable engine, extremely friendly, big fat torque curve down low. When you're running up too high, the engine does get buzzy. You'll feel it in the handlebars, you'll feel it in the seat, you'll feel it in the foot pegs. So just use it where it belongs to be used, in the power band. So I'd say without having a tack on this bike, I'm guessing between 2,500 and 5,000 RPM, and it'll work just fine. It's an approachable engine, especially for new riders looking to get out there and get on this motorcycle. And that's really who I see this bike appealing to. Riders that don't necessarily want a plastic fantastic. They don't want a cruiser. They want something in between that's got retro lines, retro styling, a little more of that standard 70s look. That's really where I think this bike is going to excel. So let's pull over right now, and we'll talk more about who this bike is for. So what have we learned today? We have learned that bolting a subframe and knobby tires on a bolt does not a scrambler make. It's the same frame, the same engine, the same brakes, the same suspension as a bolt, but now Yamaha is telling us that this is going to be more off-road capable. And I just don't feel like they finished the job. It just comes across as a parts bin bike to me. And there's nothing wrong with a parts bin bike. Remember the XSR900? Lemmy and I both loved that motorcycle, and it's essentially just an FZ09 that they changed the styling on. However, they made upgrades, better suspension, better brakes with the ABS, they put traction control on, they fixed the fueling, they made a better bike than what the FZ09 was. With the SCR950, it doesn't make enough changes. I want more suspension travel, I want more ground clearance, I want a high pipe exhaust, and I want this giant air filter box that keeps bumping into my knee out of the way. I want this bike to be more appropriate for what the whole scrambler image really does entail. Now, with all that being said, that doesn't mean there's not an audience out there for this motorcycle. I can see this bike having huge appeal for new riders that want something that has retro-inspired lines to it, but it's still extremely approachable. I love the seating position on this bike. I love the widespread handlebars. I like this a lot better than the C-Spec Bolt or the Bolt. It's just more comfortable to ride, nimble handling. This bike just doesn't give you carte blanche to rip across the desert acting like you're Steve McQueen. There's just not enough ground clearance to tackle that kind of riding with this particular bike. Regular little dirt road, knock yourself out. With all that being said, I'm not done with this bike yet. I've got this for the weekend, so I'm heading out to the desert to chase Graham Parsons' ghost around Joshua Tree. While I'm doing that, you can head over to Common Tread where you can read my first ride report of the SCR950, and there's going to be information in there I haven't even learned yet, because I get to go out and I get to spend more time with this bike. I can figure out things like fuel mileage and how comfortable this is at highway speeds. Also, keep in mind, as always, to subscribe to us on YouTube to keep up with all the reviews we have rolling out at RevZilla.com. From first ride reviews like this one for the SCR, to full bike reviews to gear reviews, we've got you covered. So I want to thank you for joining us for this first ride review of the SCR950 from Yamaha. I'm Spurge. Enjoy the ride.